Hi everybody, welcome back to the BUCS Leadership Programme. Just a quick reminder about who we are. So my name is Dan Thorpe and I'm one of the directors of Sporting People, and as I'm sure you remember, it's Sporting People with the managers of the delivery of the programme for BUCS. Jane, over to you.
Hi everyone, thanks Dan. So we might be many miles apart, but today we're going to be talking to you together. Those of you who remember me, my name is Jane Stewart. I'm an associate of Sporting People and I'm also a work psychologist. And today we're going to be talking to you a little bit about what's going to be happening in the future. But Dan is going to kick us off, I think, with what we're going to talk about.
I'm going to put the first slides up. So the way we're going to do it is we've got a slide deck that we're going to work through, and then we'll take it in turns to present different parts of it. And we're just going to present it as live, so we also may move the conversation between us at various points as well. Also at various points you'll get Jane's dog will also be making an appearance in the background, as she just has. So it will be an addition to the programme. Okay, so this is what we're going to be working through in this presentation. Then we're going to go over what we've done so far in terms of the face-to-face module that we've had. We're then going to set out a little bit about how the programme is going to work over this autumn period and then into New Year. Obviously, how it's going to work in terms of this doing the programme online instead of face-to-face. And then we're going to get into the first of the topic areas, which is going to be an introduction, and that's going to be about introducing the personal development module and the self-awareness module. Okay, so in terms of where we are, just start off by bringing you back to this wheel. Now, I'm sure you remember this, but these are the BUCS. It's the BUCS leadership competencies, and this is what we're basing the course on. So the 8 areas sit on top of the leadership competencies that BUCS have developed, and it's these competencies that we're using to build the course and that we're working towards in terms of the course delivery. So that's that sort of spider's web is the overview, and I think you might remember that at the end of module 1 we talked about starting to think about where you sat in those in each of those headings, and start to think about your development in the areas that you felt you were strong in, the areas that you felt you needed to develop further, and that's something that hopefully we'll be able to pick up again as we develop through the course. So so these are the things in terms of that spider's web. These are the things we covered in module 1. So we talked about teamwork and we talked about developing people. Jane, if you just want to give a bit of an overview in terms of the things that we covered across those 2 modules, and then we'll keep moving from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So seems like a very long time ago on that very windy day when we met, but we looked at teamwork principally through two lenses. We looked at some motivational theories, and we talked about Hertzberg, and we talked about Dan Pink's drive or self-determination theory. And we also did a practical exercise about how you manage a team and allocate different roles and what you might do differently. The second thing we tried to cover was developing people, and the 2 things that we did there was we briefly covered a behavior change model, but we also covered the process of both giving feedback but also receiving feedback, and the importance of receiving feedback well, which is going to link us really nicely into the stuff that we're going to talk about in a moment. So what is module 2? Well, we've done some juggling to pick out the 2 things that we feel are most relevant to being taught in this method after a break, and we've picked out self-awareness and emotional intelligence, and we've picked out personal development. And just a reminder that the BUCS leadership framework identifies their importance in terms of leadership by identifying what leaders who are good at these attributes are able to do or have the knowledge or skills. So when we're talking about self-awareness, it's having good knowledge of your own skills, character, abilities, personal brand, can self-reflect, and is able to recognize, articulate the emotions that they experience, and also to some level regulate their own emotions, and can effectively create and manage change. And then within personal development, it's about understanding why it's important, recognizing your own strengths and weaknesses, being able to focus down on your own personal development and put some growth plans in place, and also understand the importance of development networks, personal values, and and really developing your own way of thinking about leadership, which is ultimately what comes of proper investment in personal development and a highly self-aware leader. That's when you start being able to put in place your own philosophies and approaches to leadership that will work for you. So that's what we're going to try and cover. Dan, do you want to run through how we're going to do it?
Okay, so by the time, if the plan goes correctly, by the time you're looking at this, you should have had quite a detailed introductory email from us that sets out all of this. So hopefully I'm talking to you now, but you've already read that email. So I'm not going to, so I shouldn't have to go into it in sort of intricate detail. But what we've done, I suppose we've tried to think about the fact that we've got to replace one day of face-to-face learning, and we're going to deliver that face-to-face learning across the autumn period and just into January, and then we'll come back together hopefully in February for the concluding weekend, where we'll be able to deliver days 3 and 4. So what you need to get your head around is the fact that what we're going to deliver online through the autumn is basically day 2 of the delivery. So I guess we've been thinking about it as terms of 6 hours is what fills a day, perhaps a little bit more. So we're going to create 6 sessions that are going to run across that period of time. So those 6 sessions will be 4 tasks, and it will be 2 live sessions. Okay, so as you're looking at the timetable here, you'll see that in September, okay, you're going to get the overview of the program, which is the email, and it's also what you're actually looking at here. And then you'll go into task 1, which will be something that we'll be setting out for you shortly. Then we go, in October, we go into the first live session. So that's going to be an online workshop on personal values. Those online workshops are going to be led by Jane. I'm also going to be in the sessions to help out as well. And the sessions are going to be delivered by Jane and led by Jane, but they're also going to call on you to contribute and to discuss with each other as well. So you're not just going to be sort of sitting there and listening to things. Then across November, December, and the start of January, we've got 3 more tasks. So tasks 2, 3, and 4. And then towards the end of January, we've got the second live session, so which is the online workshop of action learning training. So we don't see those workshops being, massive. When it says tasks and workshops, I don't want you to think of it as being a huge burden onto your life. Our aim is to try and make them informative and engaging, but they're not pieces of work that are going to, take for hours and hours. So think about it as, remember, we're replacing that module 2. Jane, is there anything you want to mention about the sort of the timetable that's set out there?
I would just reiterate what you said. We picked out, I think, tasks that are relatively fun and engaging, hopefully not laborious, and most importantly, should really, really help. So hopefully you're looking forward to it.
What about the time? So Sundays from 5 till 6:30. So that's something probably worth to mention, because to me that seems like a strange time to run a online workshop. But Jane, you've got some experience of these things, and I think between you and the guys at BUCS, you decided this was perhaps quite a good time to go for it.
Like everything in this world, I think we're having to be quite realistic about what people's different existences and times are. We know some of you are playing sport again, some of you aren't. We know some of you are working, some of you are at university, and we know that some are extending and changing hours and have different home commitments. So I ran some courses earlier in the year for my own audience on a Sunday evening, and it seemed to work quite well. And it's only 2 sessions over the whole next 5 months. So we're hoping that we're giving you enough time, and it's just an hour and a half, but it's an opportunity for you all to come together, and we'll be doing some practical learning together. And you'll actually be doing stuff and talking amongst yourselves and in breakout sessions in those 2 online live sessions. All the other tasks will be sent by email, and you'll be able to do in your own time.
Okay, great. So this really just sets out exactly what we've just seen there. So we've got across September, October, November, December, and then into January. We've got the 6 sessions, which is the 4 tasks and the 2 live sessions. And we've tried as best we can to give you a little bit of a break over Christmas to give you some chance to relax as well.
So that gives you an idea of what's going to happen. Hopefully you're now pretty excited about getting started. The great thing about self-awareness and personal development is you can put this stuff into practice straight away. You don't need to have a specific job or a specific role to be able to do it. But before we get into the detail of personal development and self-awareness, I wanted to start with personal development, and I wanted to ask Dan first to share what his own personal reflections are on the role personal development has played in his life and career so far. Dan.
Okay, on the spot. Okay, so if I reflect on, if I think about personal development, I think about me. I think the things that I get to is that it's the things that where it's really important to me are about my own personal motivation and also about my career progression. Okay, so now I have to say reflect, because I think, if I'm being honest, I wouldn't say it's things that I haven't always known this, or I haven't always remembered this. It's something I have to sort of remind myself about. But the times where I've been most motivated in my work, but also outside work as well, is when I'm feeling that I'm developing new skills, or when I'm learning. And also the times that I think I've been most successful in terms of my career, in terms of progressing, have been when I've really concentrated on developing new skills and new knowledge. So I think it's around my personal motivation and around my own career development. That's where I think it's has been most important to me. The other area that I suppose I think about is I think about myself in a leadership role, where I think that I'm quite into the personal development of the people that I work with and the people that I manage. So I think maybe that's something about my leadership, my style, I suppose, that I suppose I'm a coach when it comes down to it. So I think that comes across in my leadership style, my management style. So I quite like that, when I've got the feeling that I'm able to, I suppose, help my team achieve whatever it is they're supposed to be trying to achieve in terms of their roles, but also while they're doing it, actually developing new skills and getting better at stuff and learning stuff. So those are the things that came to mind, Jane, when I was when you asked me to think about it. Do you want more than that, or more examples of anything?
No, I think that's great. Thank you. So from my perspective, I grew up, I'm trying to think, Dan, if we were about the same age, but I grew up in a world where personal development and self-help and that all got lumped together. And I guess in my very practical world of officiating and doing economics, I thought it was a bit load of nonsense. And as I learned a very important lesson very early in my career, which is that it doesn't matter how good you are at something. If people don't want to help you and don't like you, you will get nowhere, because no one will want to work alongside you on things, and you can't do anything alone. And that was like my first moment of kind of enforced personal development, where someone that I worked for kind of took me aside and said, we need to have a chat about the way you approach things. And that's 22 years ago. And I can safely say now that personal development has played a pivotal part in pretty much all the jobs I've taken, in pretty much all the teams I've built. And certainly from a personal perspective, forget work, I'm a better person because I have undertaken an approach of trying to develop myself and be better. I don't believe there is a best. I think we all are different and unique, and we can grow in different ways. But I do know that when I'm growing, I'm easier to get along with. Because I'm satisfied myself. I know that I am better at my jobs generally when I'm growing and learning. There's a load of fabulous stuff, but there's a particularly Steve Jobs does a wonderful speech about how you should just be curious in all your life, because you never know when that knowledge will help you. And certainly that's been true for me in my career. And then I would echo the point you made about being a leader and managing people and watching them grow and supporting them to grow. If you're not doing the hard work on your own personal development and your own self-awareness, you will struggle to have the credibility with your team, because they will see you at your best and worst. And if you don't already know what that best and worst is, you'll lose credibility as being a self-aware leader. But also, the better you are at it, the more you will be able to help them through their journey. and the more you'll be able to coach them through their challenges and their weaknesses and dealing with their strengths and magnifying them. And so for me, that's crucial. Like that's the money, right? That's the best bit of being a leader for me, is when you get to watch the people that you work alongside grow and develop and learn from the situations that you've created.
But that, Jane, when you were talking there, it sort of makes me think a little bit as well about something that I think is something I have to struggle with a little bit, which is that, so I am quite into developing myself, and I think I've got good self-awareness, I think, unless you're going to tell me otherwise, obviously. However, I think that makes me good to work with, but sometimes it means that I struggle when I've struggled a little bit in that leadership environment, because I'm quite self-aware and I'm always thinking about improving. I do sometimes question myself quite a lot. So I think sometimes that I can come across as being that I'm almost like I'm almost like doubting myself, whereas actually I think I'm questioning and I'm thinking and I'm being aware and I'm developing myself. But sometimes I felt in the workplace that people that weren't self-aware would come across as being, if you like, stronger or more confident or more competent, because they would just bulldoze in and would say stuff quickly. And then I would sort of be all reflecting and being aware and all doing all those things. And sometimes I don't think I then came across that well in certain leadership situations.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, I think that's a really...
It's supposed to be about other people. Shall I lie on the couch now while you can help me?
No, but that's such a great example of why self-awareness is so important, because you know that with time you learn how to tell the people around you and make people aware that just because you sounded hesitant about something didn't mean you weren't confident about the solution that was being found out. It meant that you were being considerate and reflective. And it brings me to remember a situation. I remember going into a person's office. Dan, you actually know this person. I remember going into his office and I had a solution that I had been thinking about for 6 years about something. I mean, it was serious, and I lay it down. And he said to me, problem is, you're just a bit overconfident and arrogant and think that no one else can have a better solution. And I remember thinking about it for a minute, and it was really helpful. But I was also able to say to him, it's not that. I'm not arrogant. I don't know this is the best solution, but I do know I have spent more time thinking about this than anyone else in the organization for 6 years. So I'd take a punt on me over some of the other people in the organization who absolutely are smarter than me, but haven't had the time or the energy or the background in officiating that would be able to solve the problem. And that for me was like seismic, being able to explain to my boss why he might perceive me a certain way, but actually what was going on underneath it was really, really big, and helped him understand that I wasn't just a jumped up, arrogant know-it-all. So yeah. So personal development helps people, as does self-awareness. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to talk you through very briefly a couple of slides we've prepared around the two topics, just to kind of get the juices flowing, get you beginning to think about this stuff before you get your first task coming up soon, which, don't worry, it's not hard. There are no tests or anything like that. It's all about just having a little look at something online and then maybe recording your own reflections or having a little go at an online tool. It's nothing complex. But what we're going to do is I'm just going to talk you through personal development, the what and the why. So what is it? Well, it's activities that you take on to add to your knowledge, grow your skills, or make positive impact on your behaviors. These could be mental, emotional, physical, they could be technical, they could be spiritual. And I don't necessarily mean in a religious sense. I might mean in the well-being sense or in your personal spirit, or they could be. Or they might be practical. So really it covers everything that you do deliberately to try and achieve personal growth in some form. Why does it matter? Well, there's some very practical reasons it matters. So in this world, whatever your political leaning, currently we live in a relatively capitalist society, and we believe in something called human capital. That's how our political systems are built up, and that means that fundamentally we're responsible for our own development. You guys have been to uni, that's a classic example. But now as you go in the world, what traditionally people thought of was that they left 20, 30, 40 years ago. People would come out of uni and they would go, oh, okay, now I start my career and then I keep going. But actually really, the world changes all the time, careers change all the time, activities and professionalism changes all the time in terms of what's responsible in a role. And personal development allows you to keep up with that and stay relevant. One of the most important things, it's certainly in the roles that I've managed to secure in my career, both sort of paid and voluntary, have been down to extra stuff that I've done, stuff that I've been doing on my own for my own benefit in terms of personal development that has then become relevant. And the second thing is that you will change too. I am fundamentally a different human being than I was 25 years ago. I don't know if I would still have been a different person had I not done the level of sort of growth and attempts at learning that I have, but certainly I am different, and different things make me happy, and different things are important to me now. And so the more work you do, the more you're able to find out what works for you and live basically a satisfying and enriching both work life and personal life. There's also loads of brilliant evidence about what growth and learning does for our brain. So the more you grow, the more you learn, the more that your brain will be kept active. It staves off everything from dementia to depression. There's all sorts of evidence about why it's good for you. And I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention was no one else is going to do this. The one thing I wish someone had told me when I went into my first job was that the organization I worked for might have been brilliant, but they're not going to come and do this for me. They're not going to design my career and think about my future for me. I need to do that. So if I don't just want a very straightforward career where I want my boss's job, I'm going to have to do the work learning what jobs are out there and learning what they mean and what people enjoy them and what skills they take so that I can have a fulfilling work life. And I certainly think I probably wasted a couple of years early in my career not realizing that there wasn't this sort of career ladder that everyone, went up. I think that's probably more, people are more aware of that now, but it's still worth bearing in mind, particularly in your first couple of roles. So that's personal development. One area of personal development is self-awareness. And I just want to briefly talk about why it matters. So who we are and what's important to us shapes how we make decisions and how we behave and act. And that's absolutely true in the workplace. In the world that we're living at the moment, which is very uncertain, it's really important that we understand what affects our thinking, our decision-making, our priorities, but also other people, such that when we're working with other people, we're able to understand where there might be clashes, but also where we might be making decisions unknowingly in our own interest, thinking it's the whole group. It's really helpful to develop an understanding of ourselves such that we can create a compass. So we talk a lot about moral compasses where I work, and we talk about moral and ethical compasses and building on it so that you have an understanding of what is your compass personally, and therefore what you will and won't allow, what you will and won't accept, what you will and won't do. And that has stood me in very good stead, but also a number of people that I work with in very good stead of learning when to say no to things at work, when to speak up because we're not sure about things, but also when to champion things when we think they're right. And then there's also a really interesting bit that I know that a number of leaders talk about, particularly Obama talks about it a lot, which is that the more we can align our behavior with who we are and our personal values, the more authentic and intentional we become as leaders. And the more authentic and intentional we become as leaders, the easier it is, right? So the easier it becomes if we start to tap into who we are. And so why does it matter for the people around us at work? Well, it matters because the way we are as leaders, the way we turn up, the way we act, the decisions we make has a massive impact on the people around us. The more that we can know what's affecting those decisions and those behaviors, the more we can understand how those behaviors will then impact other people. And the more that we understand how we impact other people, the more we can shape things so that those impacts are positive. And right now, in a world where lots of people aren't back at work, lots of people aren't back at university, relationships become more important because we're spending less time together physically and face to face. So if this is going to go on even for the shortest amount of time, it's a skill that's going to be looked for in managers and leaders alike. It's something called proximity. And what it basically means is that in remote working, the evidence is that you feel further away from your organization, but closer to your manager or tutor or group leader. But you will also hold that person more responsible. So leaders and managers have a massive role to play in teams at the moment, because people might feel quite distant from their organization or from their club. It's a sports club that you're in, but they might feel quite close to the person they have direct contact with. So I volunteer for charity, and the volunteer coordinator is getting really great feedback, because that's the person who's having the closest relationship with our volunteers at the moment. But the volunteers feel further away from the organisation because they're not having as much informal interaction when they pop into the office or when they see us at events, because those aren't happening. So it's really useful to bear in mind. And really, that's pretty much all we wanted to talk through. I'm just going to leave you with 3 ways of improving your self-awareness. You don't need to write any of these down. We'll share the slides, but also in the tasks, we are going to cover these things. It's just to give you a taste, really, of some of the ways that you can improve self-awareness. So the first I would call out is there's loads of free, amazing tests online. Some are more valid than others. If you catch me on a good day, I'll get into a rant about why Myers-Briggs isn't a great test. It's not really that accurate. But there are some really good ones. The Big Five is relatively valid, and there's a few others. But taking tests like that are useful. We're going to do one in a task much later on towards Christmas, and that's going to be an online test that can give you some results about understanding about your own personal levels of resilience and what you might be able to do with those. The second area is using other online tools. So one of the tasks we're going to set later on is something called the Manual of Me. And it's an online tool that asks you questions about how you are to work with. And it's like being able to say, I now understand how you can work with me to get the most out of me. And it's a really great reflective exercise, very straightforward. And then the third thing, which we already talked about in module 1, was about feedback. We are never, ever, ever the best judge of ourselves. We are always either too critical or we are too positive. If you're interested, I would strongly suggest watching something about something called the law of averages and how humans respond to it. So if you ask humans, pretty much all of us, if we are better than average at things, more than 50% will always say they are better than average. So we are skewed permanently, think we're slightly above average on things. So it's really important that we learn how to get feedback from people and increase our self-awareness. And when people are brave and do give us feedback, even if it's not that great, we should celebrate it. And it's really hard. We talked about that, how hard it is to receive feedback sometimes, but actually it's really powerful. And it's a wonderful way to build relationships with the teams that you're leading. So there you go, 3 very simple ways of improving your self-awareness. But as I say, don't worry too much about them, because we're going to pick those up in the tasks over the next 3 or 4 months as we pop them out. But really, that's all I had to say, introducing personal development and self-awareness. We hope that's quite useful. There'll be a task coming out in a few days' time, I think next week. But in the meantime, Dan, is there anything else that we should be covering?
I don't think so. As I say, I think we've covered the areas that we mentioned at the start. In terms of, we set the context in terms of the whole course. And so, just again to remind you that we are basically delivering module 2 of the course through this autumn period, and then modules 3 and 4 will be delivered in the final concluding weekend in February. I think it's the 6th and the 7th of February. We've juggled the themes slightly to choose the self-awareness, the personal development themes, because we feel those are the most appropriate to do in the distance learning format. And then we'll be picking up the other topics when we meet together in February. And that the way that we're going to be delivering it is through 6 sessions, and there's going to be 4 sessions which are going to be tasks, and there are going to be 2 live sessions which are going to be interactive. I think we've covered it. That's just a reminder of the areas there that we've covered. We're on mute, Jane.
There was always going to be one of those, wasn't there? Brilliant. So that's the end of this video. Look out in your inbox for the update on the first task. But in the meantime, we hope you have a lovely start to the new school year, or autumn if you're already in jobs and things like that. Don't forget to connect with us on social media if you'd like to. And otherwise, we look forward to seeing you at the first live session in October.
That's
Bye.
great. Bye.